Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto and Sakura Had a Kid, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives. It was dusk, and Naruto still hadn't come by the cottage. Sakura lazily stirred wildflower honey into her tea. She hadn't felt like eating much today. She was unsure if that was due to her anxiety about Naruto's absence or due to the baby growing inside her. Had her mother successfully traumatized him? She had known Naruto all of these years. It wasn't like him to be so easily spooked. But something about how differently he had acted after leaving her parents' house had unnerved her. It wasn't like him to be so sullen. She knew that her mother could have that effect on, well, anyone. She was always trying to wedge herself into Sakura's life, telling her how to live. Sakura was used to it, unlike Naruto. She sighed, poor Naruto. He was probably never going to speak to her ever again, regardless of the baby. She chuckled softly. She knew he would never do something like that. Not her Naruto. Her parents had visited her earlier that day. She was surprised to answer the door, only to find her parents standing there. Her mother looked at her sheepishly, while her father smiled calmly. Minutes passed before her mother meekly stated her apologies for the night before. Sakura had smiled, returning her mother's unsure hug. Of course she would forgive her mother, as she knew it was all done out of love. She hugged her father, whispering into his ear, "What did you use to bribe her in order to get her to come here and apologize?" He had hugged his daughter more tightly. "This was all her idea," he whispered back. She had been startled at his confession as her mother walked into the tiny kitchen, immediately beginning to wash the few dishes in the sink basin. She streaked her father's face, but it only told her that he was being honest. "She loves you," he murmured, before following his wife inside. "Yeah, I know. Sometimes she has a weird way of showing it," Sakura sighed. She really couldn't fault her mother. Not after what her father had shared the night before. "Mom, stop cleaning," Sakura warned. "I just thought I'd help since I'm here," her mother chirped, peering into the other rooms. "Where's that nice young man from last night?" The look on Sakura's face pained her. "I'm sorry. I had hoped I wasn't too brash for him." "I doubt you could have scared Naruto that badly," Sakura smiled, weakly. Mrs. Haruno streaked her daughter's face. "He's a good man, Sakura. He'll be an excellent father. I could tell that from just a few hours with him." Her mother's admission startled her. The green eyes met in a silent moment of understanding. "Thank you," Sakura whispered, touched by her mother's admission. "I'm sure he will be delighted that you think so highly of him. I would tell him myself, but he's not around, silly boy." She looked around the small cottage once more, before taking Sakura's hands in her own. "Why don't you move in with your father and I? It's more room, and I can help take care of the baby once it's born. Your room is still there, just as you left it." Sakura hadn't expected the offer, and her reaction must have been written on her face, because her mother quickly added, "I mean, if you want to. I appreciate it, Mom. I really do. But I think that I got myself into this, and I would like to take care of myself. You know, for a while," she explained, still touched by her mother's new approach to her daughter's life. The older Haruno squeezed her daughter's hands, smiling warmly. "Well, if you feel overwhelmed, the offer will still be there." She looked tenderly at her husband, who nodded. "That offer applies to Naruto, also." More surprise. Mom. "I know I've acted horrid, Sakura. I'm a bit old-fashioned, but I have my reasons. I just want to see you happy," her mother explained. "I will definitely keep that option open, then," Sakura affirmed, hugging her mother. It was her mother's turn to be surprised. She returned Sakura's full, emotional hug. "I love you, honey," she whispered into her daughter's ears. "I love you too." Sakura was interrupted by her mother's tearful sob. "Are you crying? Why are you crying?" "I'm so sorry," was all she heard before her father pulled her mother into his arms, lovingly stroking her back. He looked assuringly at his daughter. "It's all right," he mouthed. Sakura started filling the kettle with water in order to make tea. Mom, would you like a little tea? Oh, yes dear, she sniffed, wiping her eyes. Her parents took a seat at the small kitchen table as Sakura poured the tea. She brought the tray over, taking the third of the 4 seats. She looked longingly at the fourth, wondering if it would be filled in the near future. She pushed the thought from her mind. Thank you, Mrs. Haruno said, blowing the steam off of the top of the hot liquid. Dandelion. My favorite. You remembered. Of course, you used to make wine from it too. She reminisced fondly. She watched her mother as she sipped her tea thoughtfully. Perhaps she would broach the subject surrounding her parents' marriage. She had been thinking about it since the night before. What could it hurt? She thought. So, Mom, about last night. Sakura sipped her tea. She traded the dandelion for chamomile and lavender. She had hoped it would help her sleep. She sighed, finishing her tea in an unladylike slurp. She left the cup on the table. She'd clean it up in the morning. As she dimmed the lights, she felt a presence. Him. A light tap at her door confirmed her suspicions. She opened it, finding the blonde man standing on her doorstep. He peered shyly at her. Sorry, I was, busy today, Sakura. She just stared at him with tired eyes. Naruto, it's late. I know, he sighed. Are you angry with me? No. Why would I be angry? You have your own life, she answered. Something inside of her told her that she wasn't being entirely honest with either him or herself. Can I come in? He looked around her to see if she was alone. Since finding out she was pregnant, he had developed a protective nature for his comrade. It was more than protection, it was devotion and adoration. He loved her more than words could describe. He had spent all day thinking about the dinner at her parents'. Her mother had inquired about the possible betrothal. He hadn't given thought to that possibility, much to his embarrassment. He had never considered that Sakura could have felt the same way about him felt for her. Never in a million years would have believed that Sakura would want to have his child. Or marry him. That thought had burrowed into the depths of his mind, preventing him from a good night's sleep. He had thought about her, the baby, and the possibility of sharing his life with the two of them. Naruto discovered that he desired it more than anything. It filled him with so much emotion he couldn't describe how much joy he felt. He had spent the day speaking with Kakashi, asking the older Jonin's opinion on the matter. His former mentor and teacher had instructed him to talk it over with Sakura, much to Naruto's disappointment. He was hoping for a more meaningful insight to his situation. Out of everything Kakashi had told him, one piece of wisdom did stand out: finances. Naruto had no money saved to help raise a baby. And, according to everyone he knew, they did cost a lot of money. Not only did he not have money for a baby, but he had nothing to give to Sakura to show his devotion. He thought she at least deserved that, especially since she was carrying his child. He had browsed a jewelry store on the way back to his apartment. He had wanted to get an idea of the cost of a ring, as so kindly pointed out by Hyuha Walks the Earth, and was sorely disappointed that it was much more than he had anticipated. He groaned the whole way home. He was going to have to take on a lot of missions to come up with enough money to support him, Sakura, and a baby. But, he knew that it would be worth it in the end. Naruto had visited Tsunade to see if she could find him a quick mission or two to help his penniless fortune grow, even if by a tiny bit. Though she was absent from the office, he had come upon a high-paying D-ranked mission posted on the community bulletin board. All he had to do was escort a family to a nearby village. The payment was quite large, almost too large for such an easy task. But, he had taken the flyer, promising his services to the family, who were quite ecstatic for his help. It was a nice family of 6, 2 daughters, 1 son, parents, and a grandmother. The village was only a few days' travel from Konoha, and he could return to Sakura and the baby without much of an absence. The only problem, he had to first tell Sakura he had committed himself to this. He stood awkwardly in her kitchen, looking around the darkened room. He noticed the lone teacup on the table. A sense of guilt came over him at the thought of her sitting in the dark room, drinking tea alone. Sakura, I wanted to talk to you about something, he said, tentatively. Oh, she said, arching a finely shaped eyebrow in apprehension. She wondered what he could possibly want to speak to her about. Was he going to decide this isn't going to work? She thought frantically. I took a mission. I'm escorting a family north, near the border of Otogakure. It'll only be a week, tops. I promise. I needed the money. It's an easy G-ranked mission, but the pay is great. He said, grinning widely. She breathed a sigh of relief. A mission. She could handle that. His smile was contagious, and she smiled in return. A week. She pouted playfully. I was hoping I could get more than a week's worth of peace. Do you think they could extend it for a whole month? Well, I guess I could see what I can do, he replied gravely. Her smile ruined his attempts at maintaining a serious face. They both broke into fits of laughter, tears forming in their eyes. Sakura stopped laughing first, looking solemnly at Naruto. When are you leaving? She softly spoke. Tomorrow morning. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but, he began, but he was interrupted by Sakura putting her arms around his neck, pulling him into a tender kiss. Well, do you have plans until then? She asked, a devilish smile forming on her lips. It had been almost a week since Naruto had left on his mission. Though she wouldn't admit it, Sakura had been counting down the days until he came home. She missed him, much to her surprise. She had anticipated she would be lonely, but not this lonely. The days were starting to grow shorter, and her garden was bearing the last of its fruits. She had decided to pick some of the apples that were setting on the tree behind her cottage. She had an obstetrics appointment with Shizune today, and had wanted to take some of the fruit to Tsunade, as they were her favorite. She gathered her basket, covering the shiny green fruit with a towel. She wanted to see the surprise on the Hokage's face when she lifted the cover. She saved one for herself, quickly wiping the apple clean of debris. She took a bite into the crisp, tart fruit, chewing thoughtfully. She took a second bite, immediately spitting it out. The middle of the apple had rotted away, completely masked by the shiny, intact peel. A premonition began to gnaw at the back of her mind. She pushed the nervous thoughts aside, as she didn't believe in omens. She reached the Hokage's office without difficulty. Shizune was missing from her normal seat at the front desk, and the main doors were wide open. She walked through them, her shoes tapping lightly. She noticed that the Hokage's suite doors were also open, and she could hear voices echoing throughout the spacious office. She smiled, thinking of how surprised Tsunade would be at her gift. She quietly walked toward the voices. As she stood in the doorway, she realized that something was off. Tsunade was standing over her desk looking intently at what appeared to be a map of the land. Shizune was standing, her back to Sakura, with her arms crossed over her chest. Two Anbu members and Naru Shikamaru were adjacent to Shizune, their backs facing Sakura as well. She could hear Shikamaru's hurried speaking, "We've got word of a handful ninjas from the sound. According to our sources, they have surrounded an entire village to the north of here, near the border of Otogakure. It's been confirmed that they are holding the villages ransom. They are slowly poisoning the villages if we don't meet with the demands. We are waiting on analyses of the poison as we speak. Right now, we are unsure of the demands. Intelligence is saying that they are protesting to break off from Otogakure, but that's purely speculation as of right now. We are up to 11 casualties, no one wants to get involved. We haven't received confirmation on the Konoha shinobi that is currently being held captive." Sakura gasped, dropping her basket. The apples rolled across the floor, stopping at the feet of the meeting's attendees. They had noticed the pregnant medic Nin's presence, swiftly turning toward the eavesdropper. Tsunade looked up from the map. "Sakura, how long were you standing there?" Sakura didn't register the Hokage's question, she was still processing what Shikamaru had just told Tsunade, and Naruto. "I have to go," she was in a panic. She knew instantly that it was him they were talking about, even if they had no idea. "Sakura, what are you talking about? Calm down," Shizune interrupted. "Naruto," she yelled, fear in her voice, "he's on a mission near there. He's the missing leaf shinobi. Sakura, please calm down. Explain yourself." Tsunade crossed her arms over her chest, quietly monitoring the baby's heartbeat within Sakura's belly. She would unobtrusively keep a close eye on the neonate, as this was no time for a full exam. Out of the corner of her eye, she could tell Shizune was doing the same. "Naruto, he left for a mission about a week ago. He was escorting AF family to some small village near the border of Otogakure. It was supposed to be a G-ranked mission, but it was paying a lot," she sobbed. Shikamaru looked to the Hokage. Of course, the family had known about the trouble brewing at the border. It had been going on for some time. That's why they were willing to pay so much to be escorted through the area. Tsunade understood Shikamaru's change in body posture. She softly nodded her agreement. It seems, Tsunade began, that this family had an idea of what was going on. If they were paying that much for a simple escort, that is. I should have seen it, Sakura murmured, as Shizune quietly guided her to the nearby armchair. Shikamaru began to pick up the spilled fruit. His stomach growled as he thought about his meager breakfast. The pink-haired woman closed her eyes, breathing deeply. I have to go. I have to find him. She opened her green eyes, determination showing from the depths. Don't be ridiculous, Tsunade scoffed. I'm going. Sakura countered, finality in her voice. Sakura, you have to worry about the baby, Shikamaru offered. But this is all my fault. She wailed. He only took this mission because he thinks we need to get married. He wanted the money for it, I know it. Tsunade stood, in wide-eyed amazement at her former student's sudden outburst. She realized what Sakura was insinuating. He doesn't need money. He has enough. Sakura rubbed her eyes. What? How? He's always lived so meagerly in his tiny apartment, eating ramen. Half the time, I'm convinced he only eats it because it's cheap. Doesn't he know? Tsunade whispered. Had Jiraiya not told him? She immediately wanted to punch her lover for his mindlessness. Know what? Sakura sobbed. His parents left him a small fortune upon the deaths. He was supposed to get it when he turned 21. At least, Jiraiya was supposed to inform him of this, she muttered, rubbing her temples. He should have been given his fortune by now. She would definitely have to speak with the Toad Sage about this later. All of those funds better be accounted for, buddy. She thought. This is becoming more troublesome by the minute, Shikamaru grumbled. Sakura's green eyes flashed her annoyance at his interruption. He quickly averted his gaze. She could easily decimate him in one punch, he was sure of it. And right now, he didn't want to test her. He has money, she echoed. That information would have been nice before he agreed to the mission. He doesn't have to stress himself for the baby's well-being, she was relieved. She didn't want to burden him any more than she already had. She gripped the arms of the chair, pushing herself up. She met Tsunade's concerned gaze. I'm going. You can't stop me. Sakura, Tsunade started, I'm Hokage, and I can very well stop you. But you won't, Sakura challenged. If Special Ops has no idea what type of poison this group is using, I'd be of the most benefit to send. Quote. But you're pregnant, Shikamaru scoffed. Sakura's glare made him retreat with a yelp. Like I can help that, she silently chided him. I'm not ready to live with knowing Naruto was injured, or worse, because he thinks he needs to support me, she spoke quickly. And I'm much more proficient at antidotes than anyone in this country or the next. Even you. The last remark was directed at the Hokage. Both women were well aware that Sakura had surpassed the fifth's abilities long ago. You know that, Sakura carefully reminded her. Tsunade did know that. She also knew the dangers that Sakura was risking by going on this mission. But, she knew that no matter what they said or did, the young medic would somehow find a way to be by Naruto's side, regardless. Fine, she said, her shoulders slumping in defeat. What? The two Anbu members said in unison. Shizune merely smirked, she knew it would come to this. She had also predicted her master's decision. This is a mission for Anbu, one of the two argued. A female. I'm very well aware of that, thank you, Tsunade cautioned, but arguing with her is going to do no good. Quote. You've got to be kidding me, Shikamaru growled, this is too risky for her. Then you try telling her that, Shikamaru, Tsunade sighed. Shikamaru looked from Tsunade to Sakura. Sakura's stance was both threatening and challenging. He knew he couldn't win. Fine, he sighed, but I'm not responsible for anything that happens to Naruto's child. For the record. It will be noted, Tsunade said, carefully watching Sakura from the corner of her eye. The pink-haired woman was glowing. Hokage, Sakura began, formally, why not send Tenten with me? Sakura heard the female Anbu gasp. That way it will still be a mission for Anbu. Tsunade looked at the masked female, is that acceptable? The woman nodded. I shall do as the Hokage requests. Good, then it's set. I would also like to send both Ino and Shino with the two of you. That should be sufficient enough for gathering information. From the way she emphasized the last few words, it was apparent that Tsunade was suspecting that Sakura would barge headfirst into the village, looking for Naruto. Sakura was glad to hear that Ino would be there. The blonde woman, at least, would be on her side. She knew Shino was highly scared at both espionage and long-distance intel. I want you to rewise the poison, and send the instructions for an antidote. Also, once you have gathered enough information, you will wait for backup. Special ops will come to assist you. The fifth instructed, taking a seat in her large armchair. She kicked her feet up on the desk. Shikamaru, will you instruct them for their travels? Very well, Hokage, he mumbled. I would prefer that the rest of the group were here, so I only had to do this once. Indeed, she said, nodding toward the male Anbu member. The ninja quickly disappeared in a flash of black. Shikamaru and Tenten were quietly discussing the events that just occurred, as Shizune had silently slipped from the room. She was most likely going to prepare a drink for Tsunade, as the Hokage would definitely need it. The 5th Street USD. The pregnant Jonin carefully. Thank you, Tsunade, Sakura whispered, bowing her head in respect. Don't make me regret this, Sakura. You know it's dangerous for you to go out there. What if you go into premature labor? Ino will be with me, so I am not worried. Besides, she gestured to her abdomen, I still have about 10 weeks to go, I can feel it. Tsunade nodded. Sakura would know better than anyone. I am taking a real risk here, I want you to know that. Sakura bowed her head in understanding. And, Sakura. The pregnant woman's green eyes met Tsunade's steely gaze, don't do anything rash. They had been traveling for almost a day. The group consisted of Shino, Ino, Sakura, and Tenten, who was now without her Anbu mask. The three shinobi were surprised that Sakura was just as agile as ever. Tenten was most impressed with Sakura's determination, despite her indifferent exterior. It did justice to all Kunakis everywhere. They stopped every hour or so, for Sakura's sake. The latter, however, was impatient, insisting she did not need a break. Soon, the break stopped altogether. They traveled for another half day before reaching the outpost Shikamaru had indicated on the map. This is it, Sakura breathed heavily. They had been running since early that morning. She pushed back the hood on her traveling cloak, revealing her disheveled pink locks. It appears so. How do I know? Because I've already sent one of my Kikai ahead to scout, Shino answered calmly. Tenten looked amazed at how much he had accomplished without her knowing. How far off is the village? The brunette asked, her hair back up in her normal style, 2 buns secured high on the back of her head. Approximately 1/2 of a kilometer, Shino answered. Can we get closer? Sakura was becoming more anxious. Closer? I'm afraid not. Why? Because we need to ensure they can't feel our presence. It would put the captives at risk, Shino cautioned. Oh, Sakura answered. She hadn't thought about that. Naruto is somewhere out there, she told herself. She would have to be more careful. For his sake. So, what do we do now? Ino asked, removing her traveling cloak. The hood has mussed her hair, and she was combing it back into place. We wait, Shino answered matter-of-factly. Boring, Ino breathed. Sakura, to her surprise, had to agree with her blonde friend. It had been 6 hours since they arrived at the outpost. Tenten was arranging her inventory and responding to Tsunade's questions via scroll. Sakura was staring out into the distance. She didn't hear Ino behind her. Sakurazilla, she began. I thought I told you not to call me that, she growled. Ino shrugged her delicate shoulders. She street USD her childhood friend's face. You're worried. Sakura said nothing, so Ino continued, you really care about him, don't you? She had spoken quietly, but Sakura knew that both Tenten and Shino had heard her question. She felt her face grow hot. Yes, Ino, I do, she sighed. I thought so, she whispered. You know, we all could see it since we were kids. Sakura looked at Ino in amazement, how had she not known this? What? She gasped. You and Naruto. It was obvious that he loved you, she said thoughtfully, twirling a lock of blonde hair. But, it wasn't until after pain invaded that I knew you loved him back. I wondered when you two would make it official, she smiled, hoping to cheer up her pregnant friend. Well, nothing is official yet, Sakura sighed. How was it that every had known her feelings but her? She regretted her lack of introspect. What if Naruto didn't make it? What if she never truly told him her feelings? Ino's voice interrupted her thoughts. I think it's official. That little bun in the oven pretty much confirms it. That bun, Ino, may just be your godchild, she said, a slight smile playing on her lips. She anticipated the reaction she would elicit. She hadn't asked Ino if she wanted to be the child's godmother, but it was something she had thought about for some time. Me. Ino squealed. Really? Me? Oh. Sakura, I'd be honored. Sakura smiled at her friend's excitement as Shino and Tenten watched them quizzically. Sorry, she mouthed to them. Tenten smiled her understanding. Shino furrowed his brow over his dark glasses. She could never tell what he was thinking with those glasses. Ino hugged Sakura, knocking her backwards onto the grass. Oof. You pig. Get off of me. Sakura laughed. Ino relentlessly squeezed Sakura's shoulders. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to be the best godmother, ever. With those tears in Ino's eyes, Sakura was touched at her sudden display of emotion. She hugged the slim woman back. Silence, Shino growled, looking over his right shoulder. Why? I hear someone, he signaled. Ino and Sakura remained where they were, Sakura rolling onto her side. Tenten nimbly launched herself into a tree, while Shino sent a few more kikai toward the source of the noise. Soon, Sakura's own ears picked up the sound of someone coming through the brush. She crawled toward the nearby foliage, peering through the branches. She could see a tall ninja, dressed in unfamiliar clothing, carrying a rather large package. His forehead protector held the symbol of the Sound Village. She silently wondered if he was one of the troublemakers. They watched in sly silence as he hummed, dropping his bundle onto the ground. It landed with a loud thud. A flash of blonde hair was enough for Sakura to act instinctively. She quickly pulled free the senbon she has carefully hidden in her belt as she scrambled to her feet. Sakura, Ino hissed, as Shino made a move to stop her. She wasn't going to let this chance pass her by, not when the enemy's back was to her. With a grunt, she swiftly threw the senbon at the ninja. Neither Shino nor Ino had seen what was in her hand, but her accuracy and precision was apparent in the way the shinobi limply fell to the forest floor. She had easily hit her mark, paralyzing the victim by simply hitting him at a few critical points at the base of his skull. Sakura reached the man first, grabbing the front of his shirt, pulling him upward. Who are you? She spat. What are you doing here? The man just chuckled at her. Do you think I'm going to give in that easily? It was apparent that the muscles above the senbon penetration points were still functional. Ino had never seen the medical tools used for such a purpose. Considering I have the advantage. Yes, you will be incapacitated as long as I desire, she growled, her chakra-infused grip growing tighter. She effortlessly lifted him to her eye level. I wouldn't sell out my comrades, not even in the face of death, he sneered. His breath smelled of something rotten, and she had to keep from gagging. Have it your way, Sakura drew back her fist. You may not be able to move your muscles, but you will still feel pain. She saw a flicker of fear in the man's eyes as her fist collided with his stomach, sending him backwards as she released him from her GS. His back landed against a tree, his body sliding to the ground. Tenten stealthily landed on the ground next to him. Sakura, what are you doing? She looked incredulously at the angry pink-haired ninja. Interrogating, she furiously replied. We want him alive, Tenten said, crouching down to check the man's vitals. He was alive, but unconscious. She was well aware that Sakura's punches had that effect on people. She hadn't had the pleasure of meeting one, and right now, she preferred that never happen. Ino had reached the captured ninja, looking at him in awe. Wow, he really pissed you off, Sakurazilla. I would say that wasn't all he did, Shino said, nudging the discarded bundle with his toe. Why? Take a look. Sakura turned to see what Shino meant. The cryptic Jonin leaned down and pulled the cover away from what was hidden underneath. Lying on the ground before Sakura was a young man with a bluest face and blonde, spiky hair that was matted to his head with caked blood. No. Oh no. Sakura silently screamed. She weakly walked toward the body, like a puppet in action. It couldn't be. It's not him, not Naruto. Her mind was racing, looking for any reason why this couldn't be him. What is it, Sakura? Ino asked, unsure of what was happening. She peeked around Sakura's legs, but could only see the spiky, blonde hair. Tenten and Shino exchanged worried glances. Sakura knelt down to check the unidentified man's vitals, only to find he had none. She looked up at Ino, panic in her eyes. There's no heartbeat, she whispered. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.